Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, the Real Gerald Quinn. Episode 1012, Shaking the Table. As always, you can like, subscribe, or share this podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated. We prefer 5 stars, but four, we'll take four. Less than four, it's like you really don't, you're not feeling us. But anyway, appreciate your support, likes, or even dislikes as well. This is going to be a heavy NBA podcast. So this is a podcast. We're going to do basically all NBA. A lot going on this first weekend, this first week of free agency. Has begun, is already in full swing. Trades and Hall of Famers getting waived, and that's where we're going to begin with one Damian Lillard, who is no longer a Milwaukee Buck. The Milwaukee Bucks waived Damian Lillard, stretch out his contract, which was worth 113 million dollars left on 2 years of his contract. They used the stretch provision to stretch it out for 5 years. Lillard is free to go wherever he wants to. Anybody can sign him. He still gets his money, and this allowed Milwaukee, of course, the necessary cap relief to go out there and sign one Miles Turner for 4 years, $107 million. Again, this is the most money that's ever been stretched out. It's been used in the stretch provision at $113 million over 5 years, roughly about $23 million a year of basically dead money and money that will be taken out the Milwaukee Bucks salary cap for the next 5 years. A lot of moving pieces with this move. Obviously, the major reason that this move was made was to appease one Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, and by the way, I'm not saying that Giannis wanted Dame Lillard out. He was the reason why Dame Lillard came to Milwaukee. He wanted Dame Lillard. But clearly, Milwaukee's on the clock for trying to keep Giannis happy before Giannis inevitably demands a trade. They really had no moves to make, considering they just are completely fucked when it comes to their draft. They have no draft. They had no draft capital for basically the rest of the decade. Dame would have been on the trade market if Dame wouldn't have got hurt towards Achilles, they would have been absolutely trying to move that contract. They would have absolutely been trying to move him. Now, would they be successful? Probably not. But they would have tried. I'm convinced, even despite the injuries that have occurred in the Eastern Conference, that they would have tried to move him because they wouldn't have no flexibility to make any other moves to add to the cap. You're not getting Miles Turner with Dame Lillard making $53 million this year. And Dame Lillard was scheduled to make, I think it was in more than 53. So he was scheduled to make this year like roughly about $57 million. So that you have two supermax players in Lillard and Giannis on your team, you use and with no draft capital, they would not have been they would not have been able to improve the team dramatically, and they would have absolutely looked to move that contract. All right, so who went? What? How is Milwaukee? What did Milwaukee accomplish with this trade? Okay, you get rid of Dame Lillard. You get rid of a player who was not probably going to play for you this year, who was taking up a supermax, who was taking up $56 million of your cap space. That's one thing. You acquire Miles Turner, an above average center who's a stretch five, rim protector, though his defense has slipped over the past 2 or 3 years. He's not anywhere near the defender that he once was, but still pretty good. And you hurt the Indiana Pacers, who are probably your biggest rivals in the conference and the defending conference champions. So that's what you accomplished if you're Milwaukee. Now, does this, as far as the big picture of contending in the Eastern Conference, where does this leave Milwaukee? Probably in the same place that they were last year. They'll be a 42 to 45 win team, if that, if everything goes right. And but they, and you look at the other moves they were able to make. So they go out there, they sign Miles Turner, they re-sign Bobby Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Gary Harris, Torian Prince, Jericho Sims. Nice, decent moves, but again, when you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, they're not as good as the Knicks. They're not as good. Certainly, they're not as good as Orlando. I don't think they're as good as Detroit, to be honest with you. Detroit had picking up Duncan Robinson. That's a great move by Detroit. Kay Cunningham's only going to get better. The young talent now. The Beasley thing will hurt, but Duncan Robinson could probably offset Malik Beasley if he doesn't play this year for with his particular situation. Um, they're not as good as Cleveland. They're not as good. I don't, to be honest with you, I probably would lean. I mean, it's debatable. There's even as good as Atlanta. Atlanta's made some good moves with in this offseason. In this offseason, but certainly not as good as the Knicks. Not as good as Cleveland. They're not as good as Cleveland, the Knicks, and Orlando for sure. And I would say probably Detroit. And to be honest, perfectly honest with you, I think Indiana is probably still better than Milwaukee. I still would take that pace. That Pacers team still has a lot of talent. I know, and again, they lost two. They're gonna lose two starters, Halliburton and Miles Turner. Halliburton even being their best player, but they still have a number. They still have a number of great pieces, and they still have Rick Carlisle. So I don't think this moves the needle for Milwaukee. Obviously, they had to do something. Um, when we look at John Horst and the times that he's taking gambles with moves, you go back to 2020 and trading all those picks and the Eric Bledsoe for Drew Holiday that paid off and they won a championship. You go back to a couple of years ago when they moved Drew Holiday and a bunch of picks and what have you to get Dame Lillard. The difference with this move, with this move is after those moves were made, Milwaukee was considered to be a legit title contender without question. Like they were favored to come out the East a couple of years ago before Boston landed Drew Holiday. This is not this after this move. They're not even forget about title contenders. They're not even content. They're not even Eastern Conference contenders. So that's the difference. So again, I can go both ways with this move. I can say if you stand pat, like if you can't have. I mean, you can't have a guy on your team who probably won't play next year taking up a supermax slot. And again, there are talks that Lillard could possibly come back because remember he got hurt in April. Got hurt in April, but this guy he's 34, 35 years old. He's not and he's had some injuries before, so this is not. Yeah, everybody heals differently from these torn Achilles. I like the idea that he comes back. It doesn't at the earliest the All Star break. I mean, Milwaukee might be cooked. Would have been probably cooked for them. I mean, they probably been out of contention. Have been barely made the play in at that in the Eastern Conference. So look, I guess the question is: were you better off keeping Lillard on your team, telling you like Giannis, hey, Lillard's going to be back around the All Star break. We'll try to do something in terms of making a move or a trade to improve the team, see where we're at before then. Um, or we go out there, stretch his contract out, and bring in Miles Turner and still have the mid-level. And again, they still have the mid-level tax exemption, which is about $14 million. So they still can sign another player. Um, I don't know which one. Again, there's not a clear-cut answer with this, to be honest with you. I'm not going to call it a nothing move. I respect the fact that I mean, they're trying to do something to appease Giannis to keep Giannis in the fold. But again, it does not put them in title contention for the Eastern Conference, let alone the NBA championship. As far as Indiana goes, I don't blame Indiana one iota for not paying Miles Turner for not going into the luxury tax to pay Miles Turner. Miles Turner did not play well in the finals. He struggled not only in the finals, he struggled against the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns had him for lunch. He did not shoot the ball well in those two playoff series. In terms of 3-point shooting, he ended up the last couple of series he averaged like 12 points on 47% shooting and shot about 28%, less than 30% from 3-point range. And without Halliburton, when Halliburton was off the floor, Miles Turner shot 29% from the 3-point line. The Pacers knew this as well as anybody. Um, and the bottom line is, you're not going to go into the tax for a team that's not going to win the championship without their best player. The Pacers have all the confidence in the world in Nemhard and some of their young talent, but they are also realistic to know that that team coming up next year is not a championship team. So you take this 1 year, you still have young talent, you develop your young talent, and you get Halliburton back in 26, 27. Right now, not right now, Indiana's $20 million under the tax. They have not paid into the luxury tax in 20 years. So that's not, and the $30 million, they are $30 million under the second. They're not under the second apron. They are a first apron team. So they were not going to go out there and break the bank for a guy who wasn't even there, probably their fourth or fifth. We looked at the finals and ranked the importance of their players and who played the best. Like Turner wasn't even one of their four best players. When you think about it, I mean, between Siakam, Halliburton, McConnell was better. I mean, I would say Obi Toppin was better in the finals than Miles Turner was. Turner did not play well in that finals, and I think that definitely played a role in terms of them deciding not to move on from him. As far as Damian Lillard goes, listen, Lillard is to me the big winner out of all this, and it's really not close. He's going to get his money, and if he's able to come back around March or even right before the playoffs or in April, you're talking about being able to go on a contending team, well rested, and really have a chance to win his first championship. A contending team is going to pick up Damian Lillard if he's healthy. There's no two ways about it. He can still score the basketball. I know he's on the decline. It's not Dame time anymore. That player is probably gone, but he does not need to be 25 to 30 point Damian Lillard, 28 to 20. He can be a instant offense. He could be a guy, we know he can make big shots. We know he's not afraid of the moment. He could really shift, especially if he goes to a team in the Eastern Conference. Um, he could, you know, he could push the balance of power for a team to make a finals run or possibly win a championship if he's right. He really can. He really could. So he's the big winner out of all this. He goes back to Portland to do his rehab. And again, he's going to get all of his money. So same time over in Milwaukee, it turns out to be an absolute failed experiment if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. But again, I'm not going to criticize it too much because when they made the move at the time, I thought that he and Giannis would absolutely flourish. I thought that Milwaukee would have at least a minimum 2-year window to win a championship with those two players at the helm, but it never worked out. And it wasn't so much. I think was not so much from a offensive standpoint in terms of chemistry. I think that Dame had gotten to a point where in his career, he never was a great defensive. He never was known for his defense, but having a guard that is that bad on defense, it's hard to win in the NBA when you have a when you have a perimeter player, especially at guard, point guard, who is that bad defensively. It's I mean, it's almost impossible unless your offense is all time great offense. We saw with the Knicks, I mean, Knicks made it to the conference finals and they had enough defense around them to compensate for Brunson. But you had Anobi, Bridges, you had a couple of guys, you know, Miles McBride coming off the bench. They had enough defense around them to where it did not compromise them as far as winning games and what have you. But it is hard to win games. The Lakers are finding this out the hard way in the last couple of years. Even with as great as LeBron, as great as Luka is, they don't have quality perimeter defensive players, and you're gonna you're not gonna win a championship without quality, without defensive wings, and that's what Milwaukee lacked. That's what they can, and they even lack that now. They're a little bit better now, but now, frankly, they just don't have the offensive firepower. Offensive firepower. So turns out to be one of the more failed experiments in recent and probably of the decade. Everybody thought that those two, most people thought that those two would flourish playing with each other. Two future Hall of Famers, two top 75 players in Giannis and Dame Lillard, but it never materialized, and they are going their separate ways as far as Lillard not being with no longer a Milwaukee Buck. Moving on to the Lakers. Very interesting week for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers, we'll get to the DeAndre eight signed today, which just happened today. Lakers finally get their center. But a couple of days ago, LeBron James chose to opt in to his contract. Here's what that wasn't really a big story per se. Um, the big story was the quote that came from Rich Paul, of course, LeBron's agent and longtime friend. LeBron opts in. He knows the Lakers are building for the future. He understands that, but he values a realistic chance of winning it all. We understand the difficulty in winning now while preparing for the future. We don't want to evaluate what's best. We do want to evaluate what's best for LeBron at this stage in his life and career. He wants to make every season he has left count. And the Lakers understand that, are supportive, and want what's best for him. Um, this to me was a desperate plea for wanting. First of all, obviously, it's for attention's sake. LeBron always does stuff to get our attention and want us to talk about him. That's number one. But number two, this was a guy who was speaking as if he has the power over the organization that he just frankly doesn't have right now. Los Angeles Lakers are Luka Doncic's team, pure and simple. The moves that the Lakers make, moving now and into the future, are all about Luka Doncic. Period. And I think that if you're the Lakers, this would be LeBron's last year as a Los Angeles Laker. I think Lakers this year, LeBron, for the first time in his career, will be a complete, for the first time in his career, going back for the first time going back to, you have to go back to 2010, um, when he was for the Miami, that he will be an outright free agent and will have, his contract is up after this year. There's no option for there's no player option for next year. This is it in terms of his Laker contract. If LeBron were to lead the Lakers, The Lakers after this year will have only $87 million of committed salaries. That's even with if Luka Doncic signs a super max extension, maybe that number goes up to about 90 million or so, 90 million, somewhere up about. So the Lakers will have basically a clear board to do whatever they want in terms of free agency. Luka can they can go to Luka and say, what do you want the team to look like? And they can go from there. Um, I don't buy the fact that winning is the number one thing for LeBron James because if it was per se, you could take a pay cut and allow the Lakers to accumulate to get more talent around you. Now again, am I telling LeBron to take a pay cut? Absolutely not. LeBron James can. If the Lakers are willing to pay LeBron James $53 million, then damn it, he deserves $53 million. And we all know his market value as far as what he means from a merchandise and from that standpoint, we understand that. But um this is not a situation where winning is the most important thing for LeBron James. It's not. LeBron James easily could have opted out and became a free agent and went and played somewhere else for like $10 million or $20 million or whatever. Easily. Like and been they I mean, it would have been if LeBron James was an outright free agent, there would have been a number of teams that would have went after him if he were willing not to play for the entire for a super max deal. At this stage in his career, despite the fact that he was second team All NBA, despite the fact that he's still probably a top 12 to 15 player, maybe top 10 to 15, he's not a supermax player because he cannot be the best player on a team that gets to a conference final. The Lakers are to make a run to the conference finals this year. It will have to be Luka Doncic will have to be their best player, pure and simple. And again, the Lakers, like I said, Lakers have. I do not blame the Lakers one iota for for moving heaven and earth to appease LeBron James. I don't. And right now, the Lakers, so they get DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is a talented player. His talent has never been denied. Uh, everything that happened in Phoenix was not on him. I blame Monty Williams for that. For some of that, has to take a lot. He has to take some of the heat for that. But here's the reality of the situation: DeAndre Ayton, if he focuses on rebounding and defending and runs to the rim, he will get 10 to 12 points just off the attention that they give to Luka and LeBron. He will get 12 points off just that on that alone. He, when he wants to, can be a solid defensive player. He can switch out. He can move his feet. He has to realize that he's the fourth option right now behind Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. He is clearly the fourth option by far. They're not going to run any plays for him, or they should not run any plays for him. We're not doing post ups. No. Get on the glass, run to the rim, catch some lobs, and play defense and protect the rim. That is his job. If he focuses on that, then the Lakers. Then he will be well worth the Lakers taking a shot at him. It is not. They would have probably had to give up a lot of assets to get Walker Kessler. I think Walker Kessler is a better player than DeAndre Ayton. I think he has more of an upside, but they probably would have had to give up too many assets to get Walker Kessler. I don't even know if Utah was even willing to deal Walker Kessler, to be honest with you, because I haven't heard his name mentioned that much in trade talks. He's still a very, very young player. He could still be a part of a core if Ace Bailey turns out to be an all-star caliber player, they can still have a young core, he and Ace Bailey, and be a part in terms of being on the same timeline from that standpoint. But the big thing about this is the Lakers, to me, um, need to move on from LeBron after this season's over. This ideal that LeBron should retire a Laker, that the Lakers should give LeBron this farewell tour like Kareem and Kobe Bryant is a bunch of bullshit. The Lakers do not need to give LeBron. It's not necessary for me to see LeBron retire as a Laker, as a lifelong Laker fan. It's just not necessary. It's not. Like if anywhere, if LeBron should retire anywhere, it should be with the Cleveland Cavaliers. At his heart, he is a Cleveland Cavalier. Pure and simple. Played the most years out of his um played 13 years with Cleveland. It's more time than he's played with any team that he's been with. Drafted by Cleveland, got to his first finals with Cleveland, took them to a championship as well. He is a Cleveland Cavalier. And he should go into Hall of Fame as a Cleveland Cavalier, despite the success he had with Miami and to a lesser extent, the Los Angeles Lakers. But I really believe that the LeBron James era should be over after this season, unless he is willing to take a significant pay cut going into next year. Does he? If he's willing to play for $30 million or $25 million instead of $52 million, then welcome. Come back, come back. Yeah. Oh, yeah, come back. But I'm not giving LeBron James a super max deal just because. No, I'm not in compromising the moves that they could possibly make to improve the team and building the team around Luka Doncic. No, it can't be. If you are about Luka Doncic, you can't give LeBron James a supermax deal for 2025 for 2026, 2027 season in year 24. Like, no, sorry. But we'll see if the Lakers have the guts to do that. I don't think that they do. We'll see. We will see really how much this new ownership values Luka in terms of their vision, in terms of the direction that they want to go in. As far as who has won free agency so far, two teams stand out. Number one, the Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets have they keep Steven Adams, they add Dorian Finney-Smith, they keep Fred VanVleet, and he takes a $20 million pay cut, which not voluntarily. That was a team option off that. He never was going to see that $44 million this year. That was a team option. The 2 year 20 gets 2 years $50 million, and he has a chance to be a free agent after next year. Get Jabari Smith an extension, sign. They're going to sign Clint Capella. So Houston, and of course they traded for Kevin Durant. To me, they have absolutely nailed it as far as free agency goes. And the thing about Houston is they, in terms of the players that they lost, they only lose Jalen Green, and they only lose Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks and the number 10 pick, and they still have their young talent still have their young talent, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepard, Torrey Eason. This team is absolutely loaded. And they are a team to me that can absolutely match up with Oklahoma City. 100%. They have the athletes, they have the defenders, they now have a closer in Kevin Durant. We know how well coached they are. That team, again, it'll be depending on how well they mature, how healthy Durant stays, especially in the postseason. But to me, right now, I have to have them as the number 2 team behind Oklahoma City in the Western Conference, and probably if they're two. The Denver Nuggets are 2B. Denver Nuggets absolutely nail free agency. They trade, they move out MPJ, get ready to get off that contract. You bring in Cam Johnson, who's obviously a better fit. You bring in Valanciunas as a backup center. They get the backup center that can give them 10 to 15 minutes off the bench. You bring in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown. So now depth should not be depth will not be a factor um, with the Denver Nuggets. And you're talking about a starting lineup of Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and of course the Joker. And then to have, like I said, to have Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown, uh, Valanciunas off the bench, and you know some of those younger players actually had some moments in the second round. Strawther, um, Peyton Watson to a lesser extent, and if one of those guys improves, if that Strawther, Watson, or Pickett, if one of those guys improves, again, depth will not be a factor. That those two, that Denver should absolutely be right there as far as with Houston as the contender, the league contender to go after the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs next year. They absolutely love what Denver did. They completely knocked it out the park from a free agency standpoint. Again, they add to that depth, and you know we'll see if those guys. We'll see if they can get back to the finals. But now, certainly, if you're Denver, the thing to watch out for, if you're a Denver fan, is will Joker sign that supermax extension? That is what the Denver Nuggets are holding their breath with for this year, and desperately wanting him to sign that this year, versus having him wait for next year, versus having him wait on next year. And if you're Joker, you got to be happy with these moves. Um, Look, if I'm Joker, I'm like, hey, why not wait another year? Why not? Let me see how this team works out this year. Let me weigh my options. The money's going to be there next year. He's only 30 years old. So if I'm Joker, you can absolutely 100% wait. Don't have to jump. Uh, you don't have to rush to sign that super max extension. It absolutely will be there. Will be there next season. That's in the 21st century. Season 4 of the legendary iconic series Breaking Bad. I rewatched season 4, crushed it over the past couple of days. Um, One of the best seasons I think in television history. It really is. It's really, it's just it's eerie. Three of my favorite shows of all time: Breaking Bad, The Wire, Breaking Bad, and Boardwalk Empire all have had legendary season 4s. Like all those season 4s are three of the best seasons in television history, in my opinion. In my opinion, they all, like, for whatever reason, those 4 seasons were monster seasons. So what came out, what jumped out in this season, that Gus Walter battle, and that was like it was like a heavyweight fight. You're watching Gus Fring, who is one of the great villains of all time in television history. Ranked him as the sixth best villain of all time in television history. They had Walter White, and of course played by Bryan Cranston, number one. So no surprise. And you're watching these guys, these two masterminds for different reasons, basically play a 13 episode season long game of chess. And I still think probably Gus was like smarter And I mean, he obviously lost the battle to Walter, but I don't think it was because Walter outthought him or outwitted him. I think Gus beat himself. I really think Gus beat himself. You think about it, um, Gus takes out the cartel. Okay, Don Eladio um, kills Hector's last his grandson Joaquin, and basically wipes out the whole Salamanca family. Even in Better Call Saul, lay low and lay low and basically just destroyed the Salamancas. He flips Walter. He splits up Jesse and splits up Jesse and Walt. Okay, successfully was successful at that. But his fatal flaw, the thing that cost him the war against Walter, was his hate for Hector, for Tio Salamanca. Like that he detested that. He hated that guy. I mean, when I mean hate, he detested Hector, and that was his fatal flaw. And that was not because of Walt. Well, that wasn't because of Walter. Walt. That wasn't because of Walt. So I think that yeah, Walter came out on top, but not because he was the better, smarter, or was the better criminal. In the moment, I thought, yeah, Walter outsmarted him. He manipulates Jesse into he tricks Jesse into thinking that Gus poisoned Brock, when in reality it was Walt that poisons Brock. Um, but to be honest with you, I like Gus had one flavor. He had one chink in his armor, and that was his hate for Hector Salamanca. And of course, we found out why in the episode in the flashback in episode 8, Hermanos, where Gus, of course, Tito kills his partner. And I'm telling you, from episode 8 to 13, that 6 episode run was as good a 6 episode run of television that you will ever see. You literally had series finale or season finale type shit going on in each one of those episodes. You go to in Hermanos, and I'll run it down the line. Hermanos, we find out Gus's backstory. Don Eladio has, of course, Hector kill um Gus's partner, and it's someone to even inquire that it may have been his lover. There have been theories about that, but we find out why he absolutely detests the Salamancas and wanted revenge on Don Eladio. 4-9 Bug, he Jesse and Walt fight at the end of the episode after Jesse realizes that Walt had bugged his car. Walt, of course, was over up in arms about Walt and up in arms about Jesse lying to him about not about the time that he spent with Gus and didn't kill him. We get to Salute episode 10. That's, of course, Gus takes out the entire cartel. Crawl space. You have an end of the episode where Walt, Gus threatens Walt's entire to kill his entire family, and Walt finds out that Skyler has given all of his money to a dude that she used to sleep with, and then of course they put the hit out, the cartel. Then you have the police going to Hank's place because of the tip that got dropped that the cartel was after him again. That last 5 minutes of that it is wild of a 5 minutes to end a episode that you will ever see. End times, Walt poisons Brock. Walt poisons Brock, manipulates Jesse to think that that think that Gus did it, risk his own life. If you look at that last scene with him and Jesse, by putting the gun, wanting Jesse to absolutely put the gun to him, to where he had to convince Jesse that Gus did it. Um, just again, the end of that was wild, and of course, face off where Walt gets Hector to kill himself along with Gus Fring and comes out on top. So again, the last 6 episodes of of season 4 was again some of the best television that you will ever see. Um, I found it interesting that those, when you look at the Gus versus Walter White battle, the thing that I took away from it is you had Walt developing into a criminal mastermind versus a guy that was already a criminal mastermind. So we don't see Walt completely become, you know, the evil criminal mastermind until season 5. Season 5, his metamorphosis is complete. Like he is absolutely just the most dangerous. He is the danger. He said it in season 4, where it actually became the danger in season 5, even though he did some wild shit in season 4 and did some foul shit in previous seasons. But season 5, he became a form. He became not as Gus Fring exactly, but he became a full blown outright criminal. But looking at Gus Fring, looking at the evolution of Walt and looking at the evolution of Jesse's character, Jesse goes from junkie into knowing how to sift through Walt's bullshit. So, first 3 seasons, Jesse wasn't the brightest. He would make just horrible decisions, and he was out of pocket, unpredictable. But he develops in season 4, and because this are top performances by Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. But Jesse develops into seeing the types of things that Gus is going to do. He stands up to Gus. He stands up to Walt. He really becomes his own man in season 4. In season 4, like again, this season, it even like the characters. I mean, Saul Goodman, not Gus Fring, but Tio Salamanca. You see Stephen Bauer come in as Don Eladio in those couple of episodes. Even the supporting characters during this season were tremendous. And again, just it was to watch that one season only. I'm probably gonna watch season 5 as well. See how I almost have to watch season 5 following this. But this was as good of a season of television that you will ever see. The writers continuously write themselves into these corners, and you figure like how are they going to get themselves out of this? Um, and they wrote themselves out of the corner. Um, Marlo Stansfield versus Gus Fring, very similar, very similar, as far as efficiency, as far as just I think that there. I mean, I think I would lean towards Gus being a better criminal than Marlo, because Marlo cared too much about being the king and about the crown, and he was on the street. Gus was just about his money. Like Marlo was about his money too, but Gus didn't care about the reputation of no street rep. Gus was under. He was, Gus would be in the grocery store chilling. He might be getting. You would think that this guy was the nicest guy, not the nicest guy, but he ran a respectable business. Gus was not about his reputation as far as street reputation. Like he was not about that as far as ego goes. He was about his business, but very similar. It's not like a few differences, but very similar as far as with the actors as far as the efficiency of their performance. They did not say a lot of words, not a lot of dialogue, certainly less from Marlowe than Gus. But I like that comparison between those two villains, and both of them absolutely psychotic. Like some of the shit Gus did, uh, some of the risks that Gus took, you know, taking out basically an entire cartel and in the Don and on their own turf. Um, the cunning he showed with splitting up Jesse and Walter White was brilliant as well. So again, I certainly recommend that rewatch. I haven't rewatched the entire series in a long time. It had been years by at least probably like maybe 5 to 7 years, 7 to 10 years since I've rewatched the series in all. But one of the best of the 21st century, Breaking Bad season 4. Finally, with Real Thoughts, Mike Brown will become, it's not official, but he's expected to become the new head coach of the New York Knickerbockers. Um, this is a Knicks. The Knicks probably are going to complete one of the more peculiar coaching searches in recent NBA history. Um, Listen, I think Mike Brown's a very good coach. I think Mike Brown has gotten better over the course of his career. He did a phenomenal job. Again, he's 2-time coach of the year. He's been to the finals. He did a phenomenal job with the Sacramento Kings. He should not have been fired, by the way, but they end up doing him a favor because he's going to be the new head coach of the Knicks. Um, I'm all in on Mike Brown. I'm gonna tell you why. I think this is a very good hire. You can make the case if you want to that Thibodeau is a better coach and that they shouldn't have fired Thibodeau. If Mike Brown was going to be the guy that they hired, they might as well keep Tom Thibodeau. Fine. You want to make that case? Cool. Here's what I do know about Mike Brown. Mike Brown has been through some shit. Like Mike Brown will not be intimidated by New York City, the bright lights, the media. Mike Brown got so taking you over the course of Mike Brown's career. Coaching LeBron James, and I listen. Expectations were not super high, especially in those early years. He gets them to the finals, and again, he gets no credit. He gets no credit for getting him to the finals in 2007. LeBron gets all the credit. Part of coaching LeBron James. If you win, LeBron's going to get the majority, if not all the credit. If you lose, you're probably going to get fired. So he coaches LeBron James, okay, for for the better part about I think about 7 years because Paul Silas coached LeBron his first couple of years, I believe. So coach LeBron about 6 7 years. Get to the 2007 finals. All right. Get to a couple Eastern Conference finals. Um, they lose 2008 to that great Boston team in 7 games. They lose the conference finals in 2009 to Orlando. Win the conference finals in 2007. And lose, of course, in the finals to the San Antonio Spurs. He is an assistant for. He coaches the Lakers for basically a year and 5 games. Gets to the Lakers, wins the playoff series before getting beat by a much better Oklahoma City team in 2012 in the lockout shortened season. Okay. Gets fired after 5 games the next year. Fired after 5 games. Goes to Golden State. He stays there as an assistant for 6 years. Coaches them in the playoffs in that 2017 year to a 12-0 record. He would have won the championship had Steve Kerr now came back from the finals in 2017. No one was beating that team. People absolutely forget that he was 12-0, led them to a 12-0 record in the playoffs. Got basically next to no credit for that. And then of course, gets to Sacramento, turns that situation around. They get to their first playoff appearance in 2023. They get the playoffs for the first time since 2006. So this dude has been through the fire. He's coached in big cities. He's coached all-time great players. He's coached, an agent superstar. He's coached young players. He's been in a legendary franchise. He's been with two legendary franchises, with the Lakers and Golden State. He's turned around a horrible franchise in Sacramento. He's built for New York. And I really was thinking about it over the last 30 minutes that I'm all in on Mike Brown being the head coach in New York. I know you can complain if you want, but I think this is an excellent hire by the Knicks. Now, how they got here was embarrassing. They embarrassed themselves in terms of how they got here, but ultimately, I think the right man was hired. Was hired, and I think, listen, he's taking over a team that will be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. He's taking over a team that has a legit chance to get to the finals. We will see if he can fix some of the stuff with regards to the Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, and the defensive struggles that they've had. He is a no nonsense coach. He challenges his players. He's going to hold players accountable. He's not. He is not a players coach from the standpoint of kissing players' asses. He's not. That's not. It's gonna be interesting to see how if he adjusts his style. He's not gonna take any shit from these players. Like, he's gotten more aggressive as the years gone by. Jalen Brunson's a star. Karl Anthony Thompson's an all star. They're not LeBron James. They're not Kobe Bryant. Period. They're not like he's coached. They're not Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. He's coached some of the best players in the history of basketball. He will not be moved by a Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns. As far as they're not going to bully, they're not going to push him around. Even the fact that Jalen Brunson dad is on his coaching staff. Again, I don't know if to, and have some fun with that over in the group, in my group chat, about that being a possible situation. I don't. I want to make a guess, an educated guess, that it was understood by Mike Brown and his agent and what have you that Rick Brunson was going to be on his staff, and that wasn't even probably discussed during the negotiations and during the talks, conversations about what his coaching staff would look like. It's like, yeah, yeah. So we don't even, you got Rick. What are you going to do besides Rick? That's probably was how the conversation went. Who you want out other than who you want to join Rick on your coaching staff? So it wasn't even a question that that Mike Brown would have to inherit Rick Brunson on his coaching staff. Again, embarrassing in terms of how they got here, but I think ultimately it was the right hire. That is going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. We are going on a mini vacation. If anything, of course, pops off, as far as somebody gets traded, Giannis gets traded, something crazy happened in the NBA, of course, we'll do an emergency podcast. Um, I might continue the best of the 21st century every other week or something like that. Maybe I'll think about it. But as far as total complete podcast, we're going on a mini break. It's July. I will see you sometime in August. Training camp, football, college football. Have fun. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your holiday. So long.